What's up guys, today we're going to be going over the loadouts I'll be using in day 1 and day 2 of contest mode Crota, which I'll be streaming on Twitch tomorrow. Link will be in the comments and description. And one thing I always say whenever I make these videos is, in day 1 raids, it's most important to use whatever you're comfortable with and what you know. Putting on someone else's loadout and thinking it'll magically work for you like the first time you ever use it just will not happen. So these are going to be my loadouts I'm most comfortable with and what I see myself using. It might not be for everyone, and you might think there are better things to use. So jumping into my first loadout, my all-around most played build of this entire year basically is my grapple build with Verity's Brow. And for all these builds, I'm just going to mouse through the subclass and show you the mod page and the weapon page. Pause the video if you need. But as you guys know, the whole point of this build is to just grapple everywhere, create a million thread lanes. And this build is really good for single target damage, like for example, knights in the Crota raid, sword bearers, things like that, while also being really good for Ackler against Thrall or even Acolytes. But where do I see myself using this in the Crota raid? Probably not the best. There's too many Cursed Thrall and stuff like that in there. And on the bridge, I think we're going to have to be pretty stationary, so maybe not on the bridge, but really in the Death Singer and the Crota encounter, I can see this being a decent option. And something I'll have ready to go if I feel like I want to, because I have all kinds of experience on this build in basically every part of the game, raids, GMs, whatever it is. I'm just really used to this build. My next loadout will still be on Strand, but now with the Osteo plus the Necrotic Grip, one of the best combos of all time in Destiny 2. This allowed me to get like almost double second places kills in the Val raid on our day 1 clear, and that was before Strand was even introduced into this combo. Now this combo is just absolutely broken in a build I can see myself starting with and maybe just using the entire raid if it's working. All you really do is pop your grenade and Osteo will do the rest of the work. Every single final blow will spread the poison and suspend everything nearby. Nothing can play the game. It's really good for controlling the adds in a group. And one person on this build can basically do all of the ad clear for the entire raid group. That is how broken this is. And in the Crota raid, I can see this being really good for the Abyss, really good for the Bridge, really good for Death Singer, and potentially really good in Crota, depending on what the Crota counter is like now. So yeah, this might be one I start with and potentially finish the raid with if it's working. Moving on to my next loadout, this will be just a generic sunbracers build. Mousing through my subclass. On this one, I have the Sunshot. I also have the Heritage along with a machine gun. And I think the weapon loadout of shotgun, good ad clear, exotic primary plus heavy is just a good combo in general for the entire raid. In Crota's Inn, it's obviously Hive. And there's going to be a lot of Thrall, a lot of Acolyte, which would be really good for like Sunshot, Grapton Lance. Then there's going to be a lot of Knights, Sword Bearers, and things like that that are close to you, which would be really good for Heritage with Recombination. Then you have a machine gun, rocket, linear, whatever it is for damage, or ad clear further away with the machine gun. So I think that is just like a really good weapon loadout in general. Obviously pairing that with the sunbracers. Sunbracers are a little bit harder to use under light, so I probably would only use this build in maybe the Abyss, because the Abyss will be a lot easier to chain and get melee kills with all the Thrall, and potentially could be good in Death Singer and the Bridge still, but I mostly see myself maybe using this in the Abyss. Moving on to the next build, which might be the most sleeper pick in this video, will be my Void build with Controverse Hold and Vortex Grenades, and pairing this all up with the Graviton Lance and all of the different explosions of Void and Volatile Rounds and Graviton Lance and the Infinite Vortex Grenades that debuff. Yeah, this build is really good, and just like the previous build, this would be really good in the Abyss, but I think where this would shine a lot is going to be on the Bridge. On the Bridge, we're more likely to have to stand still in certain areas to build the bridge. And when you're doing that while 20 light under, obviously standing still isn't great, right? A lot of builds, their survivability is moving around or getting behind cover. But this build allows you to kind of stand still in one general area and constantly heal with Devour. And you have decent range with the Graviton Lance while maintaining really good group actor. If a knight does get close to you, you have the Heritage. If someone's far away, like a Boomer Knight, you have the machine gun. So you kind of cover everything. And I could see this build being extremely good for the Bridge and obviously all the other encounters in the raid. But I can see myself using something else in the Abyss, changing to this in the Bridge, and maybe using it the rest of the way. And now moving on to the next build, the final one in the left column, my final like journal play one. I was making one for sword flying in the abyss, where I also had a build on to finish the abyss in the case that it did work. But after talking with Glad, there's just way too many variables that we don't know about D2 and the abyss to really consider even doing that on a day one clear. So maybe I will use this build on a follow-up clear, but I won't be touching this during our first clear. So that is all 5 of the left ones. These are just my journal encounter builds, not necessarily meant for boss fights, which, speaking of, we don't really know if there's going to be a D2 style boss fight even in Crota at all. In D1, there obviously wasn't. You never really did damage to any boss. You did the Death Singer, but Death Singer really didn't have that much health. And Crota was obviously all sword mechanic damage. But in the chance that there are, I have my right columns are all my DPS builds. And all these will be with the Hothead or someone else. I don't have any of the better rockets. And most of the subclasses will be the same as you see right here. So just looking at that once. But the first one is going to be okay, there's kind of damage, but not like super heavy damage. So I still have the Sunshot and the Heritage for like the Ackler killing the Knights and all the Acolytes in the Crota room or Death Singer room, along with the sunbracers. So this is like, okay, I kind of want a rocket for damage, and I'll put on surges and time dilation to do more damage, but I still want a just journal build with the Sunshot and sunbracers for all the group Ackler. Moving on to the next one will be more or less the same thing, but now with Cataclysmic. This could be good in Death Singer if Death Singer is an actual like longer fight now, with most wizards being precision bosses, using a good linear, pairing that with all these solar surges, and a Wither Horde. Might be something else swap too, but more likely if that is the case where Death Singer is a real boss fight, I might end up just using the Leviathan's Breath, because it's a little bit better than linears now, and obviously with this change to all the Void mods. And my next one will be back to rockets, but this one's going to be more about an actual boss fight, if that is the case. So now I have Starfire on, which isn't great, but still better than sunbracers for the most part. And now obviously I have fusion grenades on, and I'm going to start off with Achilles SMG, but if it is like I just need pure damage, I will swap to a fusion and have Wither Horde fusion rocket. And finally, my last build will be another damage one, but it's going to be my Strand Necrotic build, but now just converted to rockets and rocket damage. So now with this, I just swap over to surges and time dilation, but the rest of the build is the same as it was before. One thing to note is you definitely want to take off grenade kickstart in this version. That way, if you do use a grenade during damage, you won't just lose all of your armor charges and no longer have your arc surge. And I'd be using this build in the case of I'm just using the Necrotic the entire way, and I'm really liking it. But now we're at a boss fight, so I just swapped to this to make it more of a boss loadout. And overall, as you see with all of my loadouts, they're kind of geared towards Ackler because that is pretty important in Crota as a whole. But also my role within my team, usually the past several raids, has been more of the Ackler side. So that is why a lot of them are geared towards that. And if we look at my artifact, if you want to compare this to yours, these are the ones I'm using. Pretty straightforward stuff. Then finally, all the other weapons I have on my slots, just mouse through them. Obviously, the weapons I have on the actual loadouts themselves is what I plan on using with those builds, but obviously, depending on the exact situation, I might swap things in and out. And these are all the weapons I have on my character right now. I might change some before tomorrow, but a lot of them are also things for champions if there are champions in the raid. So, for example, if I have an SMG on, I also have a hand cannon in that slot for overload. Then most time I have a fusion for unstoppable, then machine guns for overload, and ARs for anti-barrier. And yeah, those are my loadouts I plan on taking into contest mode Crota. A lot of them are heavy Ackler focus and survivability, which is kind of the core theme of the Crota raid. And yeah, I'm super excited for Crota tomorrow. Definitely come hang out on Twitch. I should have the emblem drop enabled by tomorrow when the raid goes live. And I think you just have to watch 2 hours of anyone during the 48-hour window, and you'll get the emblem. And yeah, as someone who has like 40 days of playtime in just the Crota raid alone in D1, between speedruns and challenges, I'm just super excited for not only the raid race, but hopefully Crota being a really fun speedrun or low manable content. Anyways, let me know what you plan on using tomorrow in the raid. Like usual, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.